Andy, it's great to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time to complete the behavioural assessment. How did you find it?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. It was very interesting. There's some an awful lot of information gets produced on the reports that's the kind of output to the test.
Have you done many tests before? Psychometric
Yeah,
tests?
I've done a few different things. When I've been interviewed for previous jobs, so I've gone through a number of different. I can't remember the names of the tests, but they all produce a similar kind of output, some more detail perhaps, but yeah, it's always interesting to have this kind of viewpoint of yourself.
How do you think this assessment by Predictive Index compares to the other ones that you've tried?
It's a while ago since I did the last one, but I think the kinds of things, broadly speaking, that it's saying about me seem to kind of agree with what other things have said, and probably how I have been able to look at myself and be kind of more analytical about my own behaviors.
I think that's a really good point about when it comes to these types of assessments. Regardless of which one you do, one of the best things that I find is that it really helps you to become much more self-aware of who you are and how you work around others. Would you mind just giving me a brief overview of yourself and your career so far?
I mean, I guess I started off, talking about career, started off in science and engineering after having done a couple of degrees of science and engineering basis. Following that, I moved into recruitment, which I've been doing for quite a lot longer than I did engineering. So I now do recruit people of a similar kind of background to myself, physicists, chemists, electronics engineers, so technical people. So I enjoy that a lot more, I think, than I did working in a lab, because of the fact that I get to interact with people a lot more than I did. That was what I was kind of missing, I think, in my previous job, was the amount of person-to-person interaction.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually, because from your responses, it indicates that you are really socially focused, and that working in an environment with that social interaction, I think, would be something that would be much more engaging. What do you enjoy most about your current work?
I mean, there's a real satisfaction in taking somebody through from their kind of initial application stage, and then getting them an offer, getting them placed in a job that they really love. It's just the satisfaction of that kind of feedback from somebody. Wow, things were tough. It was COVID. I was really stressed, and then you got me this job, and now I'm really happy. That whole process is incredibly satisfying.
That's actually really interesting, because from the responses that you've given, we can see that you get a sense of satisfaction from doing things for others. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of title altruist, it's fair. I don't think I'm hugely kind of self-centered. I take pleasure in sort of helping other people, not just in kind of this sort of work, but in my kind of out of work activities as well.
If I was to ask, Andy, one of your candidates or your clients, what they like most about you, what do you think they would say?
I mean, I have had kind of people give sort of testimonials. Some of it's been about that I was kind of very approachable, that I was responsive, that I was kind of easy to kind of communicate with. So yeah, I've had some nice positive things said about me in those respects.
One thing that I've gathered from your responses is that you come across as being able to teach and share information will come natural to you. And the one thing that's quite interesting as well about from your responses, it indicates that you're very patient and tolerant of others as well. And it's interesting when you get this combination of someone who's really open to teaching and sharing others, but also having that patience at the same time. Would that be fair?
I wouldn't say I was always the most patient of people. I mean, there's things that I'm kind of, if my computer's slow and not working, I get incredibly frustrated if it won't work at the same pace as my kind of mind's going. Things like that. It's generally, slow technology I find incredibly frustrating. But hopefully, when I'm dealing with people, I'm kind of reacting in a different way.
from your responses, I can see that you are someone who is socially focused and you emphasize with people and their challenges. There's a documentary out at the moment, Andy, called 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. Have you heard of this?
No, that sounds interesting.
So basically it's about a Nepalese mountaineer who climbs all 14 8,000 peaks in under 7 months. Wow. The previous record was 7 years. So if you get the chance, it's really interesting. Anyway, from your responses, if you were to lead an expedition up a mountain, I would imagine that you'd be great at building enthusiasm and motivating people to climb up this mountain safely. I think before setting off, you would research the most efficient tracks and decide on a clear path. And deciding on the best path, you'll involve others and you'll be open to their opinions and expertise. You'll also ensure that everyone is ready to leave promptly at the predetermined time. As you climb up the mountain and you come across difficult sections, I would see that you'd ensure that each individual gets through safely before moving on to the next stage. You'll make regular checks to ensure that everyone is feeling okay and that they're able to continue to climb. Once you reach the summit, you'll be proud for each individual and the team achieving their personal goals. And that's what I think would satisfy you the most. How does that, Sandy? Am I on the ball?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good summary, apart from the fact that, climbing up a mountain is probably one of the most horrific things I could do. But, maybe a gentle hill. Yeah. But otherwise, I'd like to apply the same things to something a bit more, scalable.
When we look at your profile, what's interesting is the time element, and it appears that you perhaps need to make decisions then faster than what you'd be more comfortable with, or perhaps you're having to make decisions with less information that you'd typically be comfortable with. And so I can really see the time factor coming in.
I think that's true. I mean, I've got a tendency to perhaps over-research. If I'm buying a piece of technical kit, I'll probably spend an awful lot of time comparing options and looking at detailed specs. I appreciate, sometimes you don't want buyer's remorse, so you've got to kind of put that work in. But when it's doing other stuff on a day-to-day basis, sometimes you just have to go, I'm going gut feel, I'm going a bit more seat of the pants. This is how it has to be. I can't spend huge amounts of time on thinking about things. You need to be getting on doing things.
That's the balance, isn't it, as a business owner, where you spend your time. I mean, do you spend your time on doing all this research, or do you spend it on actually what the business is there for?
Yeah.
So, and that's very evident in what we can see with your profile. What would you say that the biggest challenge you have at running your own company?
I think it is probably, time is absolutely the key element when you're running a recruitment business, and it's just making sure that you avoid things that are going to be time sinks, and just, ignoring things that sometimes you just got to more or less walk away from a job that you think, well, I could fill it, but this client in the past haven't been responsive. I think I could end up spending a lot of time, producing a list of candidates for them, trying to get to interviews, and then ultimately it not ending up in a placement. So sometimes you just have to make a tough decision to say, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to walk away.
So that's great as well. And it's a great way to demonstrate that how you've adapted to this new environment as a business owner, and having the courage to make these tough decisions and to walk away if you need to. Just a final question for you, Andy. If you could choose a different career path, what profession do you think you would pivot to?
Well, that's a tough one. I think there's a kind of frustrated performer in me. I think at some points, if I'd kind of got involved in some sort of performance, be it kind of acting or music, learning a musical instrument, I'm a bit of a karaoke fiend, although, my vocal range isn't what it could be. But I think I could have at least had a go at some sort of performative arts if I hadn't ended up, going down the kind of science engineering route that I did.
That's a great answer, Andy. Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
It's got to be anything by a singer with a kind of fairly low register. Johnny Cash is good. Some of the Bowie stuff, it's got to be kind of fit in with my baritone octave and a half. So if it's outside of that, I can't sing it.
So no soprano for you then.
No, most pop singers sing it quite, surprisingly high. Kind of, it just isn't something I could do without a key shift. So I just got to know my limits.
Perhaps you could be a professor in music one day, or even in engineering. And the reason why I say this is because with your responses, it shows that you are really keen to help others. You're patient. And I think you'd really be great at working at someone else's pace and learning ability without cutting any corners.
Yeah.
And then when they do get their results, I think you'd be with them to celebrate their achievements and grades. And I think that's where you get a lot of satisfaction from.
Sure. Well, who knows? I could have been a teacher in another life.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so, Dave. It's been really, useful. You've asked some questions out of the left field that I perhaps wasn't expecting. So hopefully the kind of answers I've given haven't been, have been useful in helping to sort of understand my profile.
Well, Andy, thank you again for taking the time to share your profile with everyone.
Thanks very much for doing the readback for me, Dave.